I am absolutely going to testify. I won't even say his name. He is an evil being and is going to pay. I think that I was just, living in this shame, living in all this sort of stuff of my past, and I wasn't able to move on. It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time.
When Justin Bieber's name rang out in the courtroom, Diddy's calm exterior abruptly broke down. His fists clenched, his jaw tightened, and everyone in the room could feel the tension rising. What you're about to see is the precise moment when Diddy lost control on day 2 of the trial, immediately after discovering that Justin Bieber had publicly. Day 2 began with this.
Do you think the person that the you of then was on a path of self-destruction?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would have, for sure, 100%, yeah. It would have been no bueno. It was bad. I don't know if I'd be alive, for sure. It was dark, so I'm very, very grateful to have influences in my life that have played a huge part in me seeing their relationship with Jesus and their relationship with their wives and their relationship with their kids and saying that's what I want. But I want to definitely tell my story so that if that resonates to anybody, that they can hopefully. But yeah, just protecting those moments, because people take for granted encounters and
Wow! I feel violated right now. Wow.
Lean into me again. You smell amazing. How old are you?
Thank you.
How old are you?
I'm 16. I'll be 17 in like 2 weeks.
I don't ever remember smelling that good at 16. Like that was bad. Wow, look at your eyes. Look at what a beautiful...
Bieber turned 15, and it suddenly seemed that Hollywood was keen to almost initiate him. I think that's the right word. Like, there was almost like this initiation that he needed to go through. So I want you to be now super uncomfortable and watch this video of an interaction between him and none other than Diddy. Take a listen.
Justin, you ever seen the movie For the Times of Their Lives? Like, where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. I have been given custody of him. He signed to Usher. I had legal guardianship of Usher when he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So and we gonna go full.
Young Justin Bieber, who was signed by Usher, involved with Scooter Braun. Now all of a sudden he's being put in the hands of Diddy, who, it is true, he became the legal guardian for Usher. You can look up all of the allegations of what Diddy did. The allegations are essentially that Diddy very much initiated Usher. As we are going through these lawsuits and Diddy is in prison, we are recognizing that everybody knew. This was an open secret about what Diddy was doing. So it just begs the question, who allowed Justin Bieber to be in the presence of this man, knowing what he was up to, allegedly up to? That seems to be very clear.
Strange calm in the courtroom as Dottie entered, surrounded by his pricey legal team, acting all confident. But if you looked closely at his eyes, something was just off. He kept scanning the room as if he was looking for someone who might help him. Declaring his support for Cassie forced security to step in. And what happened next shocked even the judge. Jump out at him, security wasn't normal that morning either. They added extra guards near Diddy's table, which isn't how it's usually set up for a celebrity trial. One guard stood right behind his chair, and another by the aisle. It's almost like they got a tip that something might go wrong. It made a statement because her friends surrounded her like bodyguards and escorted her to her seat. The contrast between Diddy and his paid security guard and his devoted friends was striking. The most intriguing aspect was that Diddy couldn't stop looking at his phone. He kept taking it out and using his thumb to scroll, and each time his face darkened. At one point, his lawyer had to physically arrive. Diddy's hand was shaking when I went over to take it from him, and the prosecution team was acting really strangely. They kept whispering behind folders and passing notes. And one prosecutor would show something on her tablet to another, and they would both nod as if they had just received the last piece of a puzzle. They knew something significant was about to happen, so Diddy's lead attorney tried to calm. She was all business on the first day, but today she relaxed. At least 3 times before the judge even showed up, he would lean over and put his hand on Diddy's shoulder and say something in Diddy's ear, but Diddy wouldn't have it. Diddy shrugged him off each time, once so forcefully that the lawyer had to steady himself on the table when the judge walked in her face and told the entire story. Appeared to be a principal who had just learned that the troublemaker was plotting something evil. Her gaze immediately went to Diddy's table, and she whispered something to her clerk that caused him to nod and grab his phone. However, he was unaware that Diddy had seen something on social media minutes before court began that would cause him to lose it all. His team attempted to conceal his phone in front of everyone, but it was too late because he had already seen what Justin Bieber had posted. The bailiff called everyone to order, and you could feel the tension rising with each word. The jurors must have sensed it too, as they continued to look at one another, perplexed as to why everyone appeared tense. One juror even requested water, her hand clearly shaking.
Yeah, so, yeah. I just want to protect her, you know? I don't want her to lose it. I don't want her to, you know, go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. So, yeah, if she ever needs me, I mean, just think about how young I was and so impressionable. And you have everybody telling me how awesome I am at all times, you know, and like...
It's like taking a kid and putting a kid in a room full of nothing but sweets.
Right.
And just saying, I'll be back in 2 days.
Exactly. I just want people to understand, like, the psychology behind why I potentially could have problems in my life.
As she took the whole room knew something was going to happen as Diddy sat there with his leg bouncing under the table and a vein in his forehead beginning to show. His lawyer kept putting legal papers in front of him in an attempt to divert his attention, but Diddy just pushed them away and stared straight ahead, his breathing getting heavier by the second. Didn't know what would trigger him or how bad it would be when it did. As everyone waited for the inevitable, a huge event occurred online. Justin Bieber dropped a social media bomb that nobody saw coming right in the middle of the courtroom. Diddy's flawless image was about to crumble in front of the entire courtroom. Because Bieber and Diddy have a long history together, you may recall the videos of Bieber hanging out at Diddy's parties as a teenager. Diddy used to refer to himself as Justin's mentor and big brother, and he even boasted about helping. Bieber's statement in support of Cassie, which he posted in the middle of the trial proceedings, sent shockwaves through the music industry and into that courtroom. Shaped Bieber's career that history made this public declaration feel like the ultimate betrayal. It wasn't just a general message of love and support. Instead, Bieber wrote about Diddy's reaction and outburst at industry parties, where he saw Diddy's behavior toward Cassie firsthand. He said that he saw Diddy grab Cassie's arm too firmly at an after-party inn. During the first court recess in 2015, he reported that Diddy interrupted Cassie in the middle of her sentence and spoke for her during interviews. These were first-hand observations, not rumors, and the posts went viral. People were huddled in groups in the courthouse hallways, displaying their phones to one another. A court officer had to remind everyone to turn off their devices before re-entering the legal assistance. Printed screenshots for lawyers to review, and even some jurors appeared perplexed by the rumors circulating the hallway, obviously sensing that something significant had occurred. The post featured this striking old photo that said it all. Bieber and Cassie were both smiling at a music event years ago, but if you looked at Cassie's eyes, there was something there. Bieber's caption stated he'd always. The timing couldn't have been worse for Diddy, who respected Cassie's strength and said, "Sorry I didn't speak up sooner." Within minutes, news sites were making headlines after Justin Bieber's 270 million followers saw that post. This was no longer just celebrity rumors. This was a huge celebrity with credibility taking a stand during an ongoing trial court. A reporter from a major network mouthed, "Did you see it?" to his colleague across the aisle. And everyone knew that this altered the public's perception of the case. One woman literally ran out of the courtroom to call her editor, while another was frantically typing on her laptop. The whispers became so loud that one of the bass had. People kept showing each other their phones as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing when Bieber asked them to stop talking. Some stared at Diddy, wondering if he knew, while others watched Cassie, who remained calm despite undoubtedly hearing the chaos. Bieber's use of specific language, calling Cassie brave, was what made his statement so impactful. And honest, writing that some of the actions I saw years ago deeply disturbed me, but I didn't comprehend the pattern they represented. He even expressed disappointment in himself for
15 years old, and I should mention he was signed by Usher to a label that was owned jointly by both Scooter Braun and Usher, and he was considered Usher's protege. He has been described Usher as his mentor. Justin Bieber, is continuing the purge. He has now moved to his original mentor. So this is a very big story, and the reason why we should discuss this and we should not diminish what is happening, it's not celebrity drama. This is actually the fall of Babylon that we are witnessing, Hollywood Babylon, that is. He did an interview back in 2020 with Zane Lowe. I think this was on Apple Music. And he was speaking about another young artist that was coming up, Billie Eilish, and Eilish. And he was basically speaking about how he wanted to protect her because she was now another young person, a rising artist in the industry. And sort of out of nowhere, he became quite overcome with emotion. Take a listen.
Yeah, I definitely feel protective of her. It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second. So yeah, it's hard because I want her to know that, she can count on me, but at the end of the day, I don't want to, never going to force myself to be in a relationship with her. It has to be natural, right? So I just kind of, let her do her thing, and if she ever needs me, I'm going to be here for her. But yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted.
I'm not even kidding. Watching that clip makes me emotional because he is saying so much without really saying anything. Protect Billie Eilish from what? From who?
Failing to see the control dynamics that are now so clear. When Diddy's lawyer saw the post initially, he tried damage control right away, physically obstructing Diddy's view of. When someone showed Diddy the screen, his eyes widened, and everyone nearby saw his face change. It was too late when Diddy saw Bieber's post, though, because his face changed like someone flipping a switch. His eyes widened, and his mouth opened in complete shock. Another lawyer's phone was whispering urgently to remove all devices from the table. Genuinely hung open, then his eyebrows drew together as the betrayal struck him. But the most terrifying part was witnessing that turn into fury as his nostrils flared, and his jaw clenched so tightly you could almost hear his teeth grinding. Later, a woman sitting 3 rows back told reporters that Diddy's hands began to shake uncontrollably as he attempted to grab some. When Diddy abruptly stood up, it wasn't just a typical, "I need to stretch" stand up. It was an abrupt and aggressive one, and the babe, who had been closely observing him all morning, began to stare. His lawyer had given him papers, but he couldn't even hold them steady, so they slipped right through his fingers and scattered on the floor. Took a step forward right away, demonstrating that this wasn't the babe's first time dealing with someone who was going to lose it in court. Then Diddy said something that the front row could clearly hear. "After everything I did for that kid, loyalty means nothing anymore." He then mentioned consequences, which caused his lawyer to physically grab his arm and yank him back into his seat. Whispered something urgent in his ear, but Diddy simply shook his head, and his breathing became labored and heavy as if he had just run upstairs. The court sketches from that moment are genuinely unsettling because the artist captured Diddy's expression so well. The clenched jaw, the bulging eyes, and the veins in his neck. One sketch artist claimed that in her 12 years of drawing, she had never seen anyone look so intense. The lead prosecutor, who was covering trials, made a subtle hand signal to her assistant, who got up and slipped out the side door right away. Later, we learned that she was instructing their team to prepare a specific witness earlier than anticipated, someone who could directly address the points Bieber had made in his post. The room's security guards had. During this quiet exchange with only their eyes, two of them moved closer to Diddy's table without drawing attention to themselves. One guard even unclipped something on his belt, ensuring that he could quickly access it in case of need. Diddy's entire demeanor completely changed during the first day, and early that morning he was Mr. Cool sitting up. He appeared to be a completely different person now. He kept fidgeting, running his hand over his face, and loosening his tie as if it were choking him. Then in the moment that made everything worse, Diddy slammed his hand on the table, knocking over a water glass that shattered on the floor, and people jumped at the noise. He was now straight, occasionally taking notes, and nodding confidently. The judge wasn't having any of it, so she slammed her gavel and ordered an immediate 15-minute recess, but that only gave Diddy more time to stew. He whispered something that the court reporters sitting nearby could clearly hear. "I'll make sure he never works in this town again." His lawyer had to put an arm around Diddy's shoulders to keep him in his seat. After the recess, something about Cassie had changed. Instead of staring at the floor, as she had on the first day, she walked to the witness stand with her shoulders back and her head high. Diddy was furious as his legal team huddled around him, their faces displaying pure panic, knowing that those 15 minutes would prove to be exactly what he needed. She didn't try to avoid Diddy's gaze either. Instead, she pretended that he wasn't unique enough to be concerned about her testimony. The prosecution began by presenting evidence that no one had seen before, including text messages from Diddy to Cassie that caused everyone in the courtroom to gasp. In one exchange from 2016, Diddy sent 17 consecutive messages demanding to know why. She had not returned her call, and another message said, "I need to know where you are every minute." One message said, "That's the deal if you want to keep your career." The room became so quiet that you could hear the ceiling fans as Cassie explained how Diddy restricted who she could speak to. She testified that he had a list of male artists in the industry that I couldn't talk to unless he was there. One of them was Justin Bieber. When I asked why, he told me not to question him. But I did anyway, and he took my arm in front of everyone at the after party and whispered that I would regret it. Cassie's judge's response and security changes. Cassie testified that she hadn't spoken to Bieber in years, but when the prosecutor asked why she hadn't come, she gave a detailed account of being isolated, monitored, and controlled. The pattern she described matched exactly what Bieber had just shared online, with the monitoring, public control, and private threats. A woman wiped away tears as an older man wrote something down and underlined it 3 times. Then when the prosecutors played hotel security, the bombshell moment came. He told me that no one would believe me, and that he controlled who worked in this industry and who didn't. I watched him make calls that ended people's careers. In a 2018 video, Cassie was seen attempting to approach a male artist in a hotel lobby when Diddy, whose body language matched exactly what she had just described, appeared, put his arm around her, and led her away. Diddy then leaned over to his lawyer and began frantically whispering and pointing at the screen, while Cassie mentioned specific events in stunning detail, including dates and locations.
They wanted copies of these videos for themselves, and I've talked to lawyers about this before. There's a big advantage to having the electronic video, the electronic evidence yourself, right? You don't have to always go over to the other office. You can view the materials on your own. It's a way to better prepare for your defense. And Sean Combs' lawyers argued that under the federal rules of criminal procedure, electronic data that is in the government's possession. Judge Subramanian denied the defense's motion to amend the protective order, but without prejudice, meaning this issue could be revisited. So Subramanian's order reads, quote, while the government objects to handing the videos over, they provide several options for a defendant to consider that would permit the defense to view the videos, access the information they're looking for, and even allow them to manipulate the videos.
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second. So if she ever needs me, I'm gonna be here for her, but yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted encounters, and I just want to protect her, I don't want her to go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. Yeah, if she ever needs me, I'm just a call away.
Do you realize how important your story is? Every time I have a conversation with someone who's been through this unique type of experience, I'm searching for some kind of truth that can help.
I commend you for going there and asking the tough questions and the things that people don't want to talk about, and they don't want to go there because it's revealing, and I want people to take a look at my story, and hopefully my words can make a difference.
Was backstage at the VMAs on March 8, 2017, at the Standard Hotel in New York, June 22, 2017, at his Miami home, and September 12, 2018. Each time she named a date, Diddy's attorney frantically went through his notes, looking more and more concerned. She said that other witnesses had been reluctant to speak up, but were now calling her attorneys after witnessing. The statement that caused Diddy to lose all control came after Bieber's support. My phone hasn't stopped with messages from people saying they're ready to tell what they saw, she said. Cassie testified that after speaking with Bieber at an industry party, Diddy pulled her aside and said, even Justin knows what happens to people who cross me. As Cassie continued to testify, Bieber's public endorsement of her made this threat appear extremely damning. You could literally watch Diddy crumble as each new detail related to Bieber's statement caused him to fidget more and whisper more urgently to his lawyer, appearing more panicked. The self-assured music mogul was vanishing just before everyone's eyes. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more intense, the prosecutor pulled out her tablet and connected it to the courtroom display system, which connected the screens around the room. Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence that directly contradicts Mr. Combs' claim that Ms. Ventura made up these accusations. The prosecution focused on a particular exchange between Cassie and Justin Bieber in 2017 that caused several jurors to sag forward in their seats. Cassie wrote, "I don't know what to do anymore. He monitors everything." He added, "If I talk to anyone, he'll make sure I never work again." The room was filled with text messages and pictures. "This isn't normal, Cass. What he's doing isn't okay. You need to talk to someone who can help." Bieber's response read, "This isn't normal, Cass. What he's doing isn't okay. You need to talk to someone who can help." As soon as those messages appeared, Diddy leaped out of his chair, and the sound of it scraping across the floor made everyone jump. His face was bright red, and his eyes bulged. Diddy was not listening, so he shoved his lawyer's hand away so forcefully that the man staggered backward. "This is all lies," Diddy yelled, pointing at Cassie. "You know damn well that's not what happened. Where's your loyalty after everything I did for you?" The lawyer grabbed his arm and tried to pull him back down, saying, "Scene, don't do this." His voice was loud enough for the front rows to hear. The judge banged her gavel 3 times, saying, "Mr. Combs, sit down immediately, or I will have you removed." Her voice pierced the chaos like a knife, but Diddy wasn't stopping. 2 security officers quickly made their way toward the defense table, one placing himself between Diddy and Cassie, and the other coming up from behind the court. The jury watched in complete disbelief as reporters typed furiously, documenting every word of this unplanned meltdown. One older woman in the back row even covered her mouth with her hand, and a younger man in the front row physically leaned away from Diddy to distance himself from the outburst. "Your Honor, we need a recess," Diddy's lawyer yelled in an attempt to regain control of the situation. Justin never stated that the evidence was fatal to Diddy's case. These 5-year-old messages flatly refuted his claim that Cassie made up accusations to obtain money. Diddy was already turning toward the evidence screen, pointing at the messages that were fake and fabricated. His voice was now resonating off the walls. Years before bringing any legal action, she had confided in Bieber about the same patterns of behavior. The judge slammed her gavel once more, ordering the jury to be removed immediately. As the 12 men and women filed out, the majority of them couldn't help but stare at Diddy, who was still standing and yelling. The security guards moved in, one on each side of him, saying, "Sir, you need to." "Calm down now," someone said, putting a firm hand on Diddy's shoulder. For a brief moment, it appeared as though Diddy might even push the officer, but instead he fell silent and began to breathe heavily as the reality of what had happened seemed to hit him. The damage had been done, and the controlled image Diddy had maintained for decades had been shattered in front of everyone, and as the security officers. Judge Marlowe didn't hold back. She stood up behind the bench, pointed directly at Diddy, and delivered the smackdown of the century. "Mr. Combs, this is a court of law, not a recording." With the jury safely out of the room, the world saw a completely different side of the music mogul, one that made Cassie's accusations seem much more credible. One more outburst like that, and I will hold you in contempt. You'll spend the rest of this trial in a cell making appearances only when necessary. She wasn't done. The judge ordered a psychiatric evaluation to be conducted. She said, her voice piercing the room like a knife. Finished prior to the following day's proceedings, she enforced new security measures. Diddy's lawyers were prohibited from speaking to him without an officer present, and his phone privileges were completely revoked. His legal team was huddled in the courtroom corner like a football team that was 40 points behind. The head attorney kept. A third lawyer was frantically jotting notes, periodically gazing up at Diddy with an expression that shouted, "We're in trouble," while another shook his head and made frantic calls. Their body language conveyed the entire narrative. They were aware that their case had just been severely damaged, and it was hard to ignore their reactions when the jury returned. Juror number 8, a young professional who had smiled at Diddy on the first day, but now refused to even look at him, was the most telling. The middle-aged woman in the front row physically moved her chair a little away from the defense table, and the older man who had been taking thorough notes now sat with his arms crossed and pen untouched.